All right, so the first session that we're going to work on here is the foot, ankle, knee. The only thing you need for this is some sort of a mat or padding. If you don't want to be on a hardwood floor, if you have a carpet, that should be fine too. And some sort of a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, something along those lines. So what I'm going to do is talk you through a little bit of why we're doing these as well. So the first exercise that we're going to do is going to work on ankle and big toe dorsiflexion or upward flexion, right? So lifting your big toe up. This is a really, really important movement for walking as you get into toe off and can really impact sprinting as well as just general gait, stress through the knee, stress through the hip, all of that stuff. So you're going to dig your toes so your toes are down into it. If you need some help, actually, what I tell people is grab their ankle, push it in. Now, if this is enough for you, you can just rock back as much as you can tolerate. If you have a little more tolerance, you're going to sit back, lean all your weight back onto your toes, and then come back forward. We're going to go through about 10 reps of that, digging that big toe in. Again, when you're starting with mobility, you always want to regress it. You want to push your body so that there's some sort of adaptation, but you never want to push yourself into the point where you feel like you're doing damage, right? And there should be a strict difference between doing damage and then pushing yourself to get a little bit better. So I want you to feel a stretch. I want you to feel some mobility as we're opening up that big toe area as well as the ankle, but you shouldn't feel excruciating pain, numbness, tingling, anything along those lines. Good, so once we hit those 10, we're gonna go toes down. And what we're gonna do now is sit back onto those flat feet, just like that. So I just talked about working dorsiflexion, which is flexing the ankle up and big toe up. And now we're gonna work on what's called plantar flexion, getting the ankle down in that position. So again, you can always modify these. If you want to put less weight, I would suggest shifting your chest forward. If you want to put more, you're going to shift your weight back and sit back onto your knee. You notice we're actually getting the knee into full flexion here as well. So if you have knee issues, what you can do is place a towel or a pad underneath here. That'll limit how far you can get down right here. And so if you don't want to sit all the way down, like you've had a knee replacement or fresh ACL surgery and you don't have all the range of motion back. Good. So let's go back into the toes down. Good. 10 more reps of that. So the thing about the ankle is that although it's a relatively stiff joint, it doesn't move like the shoulders, knees, hips. It actually moves in a few different directions. So you get that dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, which is forward, back, but you also get what's called eversion, inversion, as we keep kind of rocking back here. And that's where you get a lot of the sprained ankles, right? They're called inversion sprains, where you get the pain on the outside of your foot. That's the most common one anyway. So having control into all these different ranges of motion can ultimately, hopefully, prevent a lot of those types of injuries, whether they're repetitive stress injuries or your ability to just catch yourself or endure stepping in a hole, stepping in a pothole, something along those lines. Let's switch back right now. Feet flat on the ground, sitting back now, as much weight as you want. And remember, there's always a way to progress this as well. If you're feeling almost nothing here, like you have more mobility to give, grab a heavy object, fill a backpack with books. That'll weigh you down, push you even further into that plantar flexion. Good, let's go 2 more here. This is something for me that I've personally had to work on a lot. My ankle mobility is not the best, and I feel like it has impacted a little bit of low back pain that I have had in my baseball career, and obviously still kind of dealing with that coming out of school. Okay, so now what we're going to do is a half kneeling ankle circle. So this is what I was talking about of moving through all ranges of motion of the joint. I'll show you a few different views. We're going to go left leg forward first, right knee on the ground, pushing down into the ground to add a little bit more weight. You're going to keep your foot totally in contact with the ground and move through a full circle. We're going to go 8 one way, 8 the other way. Again, the progression for this, either add a weight on top of here. I like to use a kettlebell. There's always something lying around the house. If you have a kid, have them sit on your knee. Why not, right? Make them useful during your mobility routine. Switch sides once you've hit the 8. Really explore all those different ranges of motion. If you have one area that feels particularly sticky, like right there, that's mine, I'll kind of mobilize through that area a few times before continuing out. Awesome. Switch legs. So I'll show you a view from straight on the front so you can see exactly how much I'm trying to get it. Now, my mobility here is going to be limited by how much I can keep my foot in contact with the ground. The thing about mobility, I tend to say it's different than just stretching, for instance, that with stretching or passive stretching, you're not really loading the joint as much as with strength training through full range of motion or true mobility training. I like to load the joint in a few different ways so that it can absorb that force. It's more, I don't love the term functional, but in real life, you're absorbing force through that joint in different ranges of motion, so it better prepares you. Find that sticky point again. I'm going to work through there. I've had a bunch of ankle sprains on this throughout my life, so this right ankle gives me a little bit of trouble in that position, so I have to pay a little bit of extra attention to it. And that's all this really is, folks, is, we all have our own little bumps and bruises, things, whether it's injuries that you've had before or just areas that don't move so well. Pay attention to those. If something else feels really good, you don't have to spend as much time on it. Think of it more as maintenance care. So we're going to use that tennis ball now. We're going to do a little bit of a calf release. So if you have a foam roller, foam rolling obviously in this position, down into this position is a great option. But here's a really neat way to do this if you don't have it. Remember that stretch we did where we were feet down on the ground? If you're having sore calves or tightness, put a tennis ball in that area. First, kind of feel around, where am I really tight? Put a tennis ball in that area, sit on that tennis ball, and now move side to side. You can put as little or as much force through there as you want. As you can imagine, a lacrosse ball or a golf ball or a baseball would probably be even tougher. Oof. My runners out there, this is probably a great one for you. You're kind of getting a double whammy with this, getting back into that ankle and knee mobility, and also feeling out some of those trigger points in the calf. So rock back and forth. If you find a spot that's really tight, you can just kind of sit on it, breathe through it a little bit, and then switch over to that other side. So I'll just show you at a better view. Take that tennis ball, find some sticky points there, whether they're closer down to the foot, higher up towards the knee. This is all about sort of personalizing it, customizing your experience with this. Rock back and forth on that tennis ball. And although you might have heard foam rolling breaks up adhesions, does sort of that, that sort of thing, that's largely been debunked, but it doesn't mean that it can't have a positive effect on your body. What largely is happening is you're basically giving a stimulus to the nervous system. You have a part of your body that is hypersensitive to pain signaling. By putting a little bit of work in there, you're sort of deregulating that pain signal, and hopefully as a result of that, you have a little bit more range of motion and a little bit of decreased pain. All right, so the last exercise that we're going to do is sort of putting this all together, and again, highly modifiable. So let me go with the easiest version first. Half kneeling. It's going to be a lunge over this front foot as far as you can get into that dorsiflexed position. Come back out. We're going to do 12 total, but if this feels good for you, keep going. Here's the standing version. All the way forward. You can rock onto your forefoot or front of those toes if you feel like you have to at the end range. If not, and you have the mobility, keep that foot flat. Drive the knee over the toe. You're going to build a lot of strength and end range of motion here. If you feel like, this is making my knee a little cranky, stop right there, or you can elevate that front foot as well. Good. Switch over to the other side here. Move through a few sets of that. And remember, feel free to pause this video if you're like, wow, this feels great. I'm going to do 2-3 sets of this. Again, I want you to take bits and pieces of all of these, feel them out a little bit, make your own little routine. I'm just here to provide a little bit of guidance going forward with that. I'm going to hit 3 more. Whoa, lose my balance a little bit. Good, and back up. Okay, cool. So that covers the foot and knee ankle portion of this quick little mobility video. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I will see you tomorrow on the next video. Take care.